let's get this party started. And
okay,
we are going to ring the bell, right?
Bing.
Ring the bell.
All righty. So let's start our first meeting of 2020-2021 with Mr. Jose Garcia doing his invocation for us. Let's see. I know Jose's here. I saw him come in.
There we go. I was
There we are.
on mute. I muted myself. Anyway, it must be that I'm nervous because we have a brand new year starting with a brand new leader, and I want to make sure that I do it all correct and right. But anyway, this is, I've been pondering about what to have as an invocation this morning or this afternoon, and I thought it'd be appropriate to have a prayer for a leader. It's called a leader's prayer. Let us bow our heads if you are so inclined. Leadership is hard to define. Lord, let us be the ones to define it with justice. Leadership is like a handful of water. Lord, let us be the people to share it with those who thirst. Leadership is not about watching and correcting. Lord, let us remember it is about listening and connecting. Leadership is not about telling people what to do. Lord, let us find out what people want. Leadership is less about the love of power and more about the power of love.
Amen.
Lord, as we continue to undertake the role of leader, let us be affirmed by the servant leadership we have witnessed. Let our greatest passion be compassion, our greatest strength love, our greatest victory the reward of peace. In leading, let us never fail to follow, and in loving, let us never fail. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Joe, for starting us off so well. I've got to remember to do all of this fun stuff. All righty. So our next slide is our Pledge of Allegiance. Mike Freet, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Yes. You need to unmute, Mike.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. I pledge allegiance
To the
To
flag
the flag
of
of
the
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
for all.
justice for all. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome, El Supremo.
And let's do the Star Spangled Banner today. Excellent. Thank you again for joining us for our first meeting of 2020-2021. And here comes Chuck Ailing. Thank you so much. Welcome. And to our guests and visiting Rotarians, I'm going to start out the guests day. My oldest is joining us via Zoom. Dan, can you say hi, or are you muted permanently? Okay. You may have muted him permanently.
No, I'm here. I think, well, I mean, you may have muted me permanently, but
Yes.
I think that's more of a parenting decision than it is a technological issue.
Thank you for joining.
Hello, everybody. You guys, absolutely glad to see you guys. You guys are in great hands. He spent 23 years not messing me up, and he definitely didn't write this for me. So. In great hands.
Your
Good to see
money's in
that
the mail.
father and son have the same.
Yeah,
goal.
your check is in the mail.
Do we have any other guests?
Tip you
Keith, is
later.
your guest? Keith? Is your guest here? No? Okay. Do we have any other guests? All right. I see. Hearing no other guests, let's move on. All right. With our howdy song. Woohoo!
Wait a minute. I was
Okay.
muted. We do have another guest. I was muted there. Sorry about that.
There we
Yeah,
go.
Tawanda.
Technological challenges. Tawanda Mills, as you can see her, she's joining us from Orlando, Florida. She's the superintendent of the Conrad Academy there and has been doing an incredible job for a decade at least.
Excellent. Tawanda, welcome. And Dan, we have a special gift for you for joining with us as soon as I let Dan Sunquest in. The singing choir.
Yeah, it's too much to ask if we put the singing also recorded.
You go for it, Asa. You provide me the file. I will play it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Our calendar coming up for the next month. Next week, we have Robin Douglas talking about the Oceanside Museum of Art. Next Tuesday is our first board meeting as well of the new year. Anyone is welcome to join us. I will send out a broadcast, and you are welcome to join our board meeting via Zoom. 15th, we have Haven House. The 18th is Larry Trotner's Adopt a Highway. Go out, pick up trash, and make our city look better. The 21st, we have Palomar Hospital talking about COVID-19. And then the next week, they're going to talk to us about insomnia. On the 4th, we have Community Housing Works. Then the 5th, we have Haven House and another board meeting. And on the 11th, Palomar comes back again to talk to us about nutrition, because apparently they've seen what I eat during the quarantine. Ione, come on. Do we have any member moments this week?
Yes. Andrew,
Yes, please.
this
Go
is
ahead.
Amy Wondolowski. And I just wanted to say that Bernie Blaney and her husband are celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary. And also Bernie's husband, Vern, is 80 years old.
Wow. We actually are going to acknowledge that anniversary in just a few moments. I just accidentally muted someone. I apologize. All right. So let's, any other member moments? All right. Then let's move on to our birthdays from Frank Tecca.
Okay, July birthdays.
For all of you great Rotarians who were born in July, your birthstone is the ruby and your birth flower is the tulip. So with that, we have Arlene Schuster on July 1, John Steele on July 2, Ron Parker on July 17, Rich Marino on July 18, Bob Suibla on July 18 also, Alexandra Keegan, July 19th, Ken Manel, July 22nd, Joe Giamenco, July 24th, Roy Henderson on July 29th.
And we have a special graphic for while we sing. Arlene Schuster provided us a picture or a video of her birthday cake. So let me know when you're ready to sing.
Let's do it. Let's sing them. Everybody sing a rousing happy birthday song. The cake's going up.
Happy birthday
to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarian. Happy birthday to you.
That cake got out of hand, didn't it?
Yeah, it was there were a lot of candles on that cake apparently. All right. Christine, are you ready to do In the Wild?
I am ready. I think every Zoom meetings needs to have a greeter. And so this guy volunteered. We want to make all of our guests feel welcome. Can you imagine having that dog?
No. No.
No.
Oh, this is Greg Anglia in the wild with his family. And boy, I love the hair, Greg. You know the barbers are open now, right? This was quite a surprise. Happy retirement to Jan Jones.
Oh my.
Hey, Jan.
Yes, isn't that exciting? So yeah, welcome to the world of retirement, Jan.
I can't wait. You guys can all give me pointers, but I'm very, very excited. So it's a great blessing.
Thank you for all you've done for the community and for Elizabeth Hospice all these years. And in the wild, it might look like quite a wonderful 4th of July weekend for Rosa Ruiz, but this was last year on the USS Midway in San Diego. So she always gets the greatest pictures and posted this for us this 4th of July. And here, thank you, Amy, is Bernie and Vern celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary. And yes, it's Vern's birthday at the same time. So congratulations, Bernie. That's really exciting.
Thank you very much.
Wow. 60 years. Wow.
I know, 60.
Amazing.
And I think that is it.
That was it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So one of the things that we had talked about doing this year is talking about all of the service projects that we do from a more personal level, not just pitching that we have Haven House coming up tomorrow. And so I started off this week. I'm asking Jay Grossman to talk to us a little bit about why he loves doing the Haven House.
Okay. Well, you know, I think the service above self really plays out when you actually get involved and do stuff, whether it's going to RILA or whether it's going to LEAD or going to Haven House. And that's been going on. I think we've been sponsoring that for several years, initially with Rosa and now with Kelly Cloud. I really like to go for a couple of reasons. I like to see what everybody's knife skills are like and who has clean jokes. And it's usually 3 or 4 of us. It's just a couple hours. And it's very rewarding to feed 20 to 40 less fortunate people who are usually very grateful for us being there. And you really do get to meet other Rotarians in a much closer personal setting. And that's probably all I wanted to say about that.
Probably wants her lunch.
Thank you so much, Jay, because, and again, a reminder, we have that coming up tomorrow night, and it's a great project. I've only been on one of them, but it's really a lot of fun.
Yeah, can I butt in, Jay? You've been since COVID and all of that. You might help relieve some anxiety by telling people your view on how safe it is.
Well, everybody has gloves and masks, and everybody who's there is masked and gloved, and I don't have any trepidation about being there. I think we're very safe.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you again, Jay.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's time for Miss Leela Sackfield to sing us her fun song. Let's see. I got to move the screen up. You ready, Leela?
I'm ready.
And do you know who this is on our slide for the fun song?
Yeah, sorta.
He
A
feels,
wedding singer?
no, he feels the exact same way in that moment. He's sort of sure of who he is. And he actually wrote the music to the song you're about to sing.
Oh, I see who that is. Yes. Okay. So
That's Bobby Zimmerman.
Yes,
yeah.
Bobby Zimmerman.
Bobby
Good
Zimmerman.
old Bob Dylan.
So I just want to say before I start that I really am asking from the bottom of my heart for all of you who are the praying sort, and thank you so much for that prayer, Mr. Garcia. These two people that are about to talk to you, you cannot imagine the pressure that they are under right now. You cannot imagine the number of decisions that are made every second of every day. And I want to tell you, Anne and Luis, that you are my heroes. And what you are doing right now is truly, truly something. So thank you for everything that you're doing. And I'm going to sing you a little song because I had a moment to write this. How many children in town do you serve, ensuring they all get to learn? Yes, and how many teachers and classified staff are part of your supporting crew? Yes, and how many acres of buildings and land are always kept safe and secure? With all that you do, our hats go off to you. We thank you for your care and leadership. How many meetings must you always attend, explaining your goals and your plans? Yes, and how many people from schools in our town bringing questions and concerns that bring you down? Yes, and how many times must you stand and defend the children that nobody sees? With all that you do, our hats go off to you. We thank you for your care and leadership. And so in this time filled with virus and fear, you'll dig deep again and again. You'll bring your best people to help make the plans to reinvent the children's school experience. Collaboration is the key to success, as you know. So you'll come with an open heart and open ears. With all that you do, our hats go off to you. We thank you for your care and leadership.
Very nice.
Wow. Awesome.
Very nice.
Awesome.
Very, very nice. And to introduce our speakers, Miss Dara. God, why do I keep calling you Dara? I've got to stop calling you Dara. Tara?
No worries. Just don't call me late for supper, as they say.
Right.
Okay, great. Well, I have two intros, obviously, because we have two presenters. So first, Dr. Anne Staffieri. Anne is the superintendent of the Escondido Union High School District. She began her career as a Spanish and science teacher and then administrator at Escondido Union High School District, and then worked as an elementary and high school principal and human resources director at Valley Center Palma Unified. She returned to Escondido Union High School District to work as human resources director between 2013 and 16 before taking the superintendent's position in Ramona. She returned to Escondido last year to be the district superintendent. Anne holds a bachelor's degree in biology from Brigham Young University, a master's degree in education from Cal State San Marcos, and a doctorate in educational leadership from Brigham Young University. Her accomplishments include a strong personal background with extensive experience in employee relations and contract negotiations, and the creation and implementation of comprehensive professional development and leadership programs for teachers, classified support staff, and management. Welcome, Anne. And then our second introduction is Dr. Luis Ibarra. Dr. Ibarra was raised in an immigrant family and experienced the challenges of growing up as an English language learner. Education was important to his family, so he persevered and became a graduate of the public school system. Early on, he discovered his passion for education and knew he wanted to be a teacher. He enrolled at CSU San Bernardino and earned a bachelor's degree and teaching credential there. He also holds a master's degree in education admin from Azusa Pacific University and a doctorate in educational leadership from the University of San Diego and CSU San Marcos. Dr. Ibarra became the superintendent of the Escondido Union School District in 2014. His professional history includes being a teacher, a K-6 elementary principal, and an associate superintendent of both business services and human resources. He's worked in Oceanside, Victor Valley, and Rialto school districts prior to becoming superintendent of Escondido Union School District. Let's welcome Anne and Luis.
Yay. Woo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can everyone hear us? Like, Luis, can you hear me? I want to make sure.
I can hear you, Anne. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Well, I'm sure we've over-prepared a number of slides, but we're hoping that in our time together, we can take you through a little glimpse of the journey that we've been on since our schools closed in March and what we are working on now as we anticipate the reopening. So if you can go to the next slide, what we're hoping to cover here. And Leela, thank you so much for that beautiful song. It was just so touching, and Leela's been right with us through all of these challenging issues that we faced and the planning, and it's been a roller coaster, and I think it continues for a while. But you can see here a list of items that we're hoping to cover. What led us to school closure, what we've done in terms of feeding all of our students and providing distance learning for them, how we closed out our school year, and what we're doing now as we anticipate reopening. So while one of us speaks, the other one will monitor the chat, and hopefully we'll keep this moving, right? Dr. Ibarra, does that sound like a good
That
plan?
sounds great.
I'll kick it over to you for our next slide.
Okay. All right. So again, we'll all remember that Friday when we all decided to make the decision to close the schools. And a few days later, the entire state and country was closed. So it really came into effect with the governor's executive orders on March 13th, which for schools meant that we were going to be, our funding levels were going to be kept stable as long as we provided the following things. That we were to immediately provide school meals to children 18 and under, provide distance learning for our students, and then to the extent practicable, arrange for supervision of the students. So our meal program, that immediately, I mean, we announced the closures on Friday, and by Monday, both our districts had our meals ready to go that Monday morning. So it was an all weekend long effort between both of our school districts to provide meals for our families. March 16th, 8 school sites were immediately available to our community. We were providing 2 meals per day, averaging anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 meals per day. Back in May, we were up to 11 sites, providing 3 meals per day, which included weekend and meals on Friday. As of the last time we checked in May, we had served over 200,000 meals to our community. Next slide.
That still continues. I know we just want to share with all of you, we have our summer feeding program throughout the city here of Escondido because we have a number of families that are food insecure, and we continue to provide those meals currently this week, and will continue.
Yeah, we have not closed down. Our folks, our nutrition services departments have been out there since March 16th. I think they've taken 2 Mondays off, and that had to do with Easter break. We gave them a day, and then we also 4th of July Friday, they took the time off. But we ended school, and the very next day we continued with the meal program. So, and that's going to continue through our first day of school. Next slide. So distance learning 101, we had to immediately learn what all this, because distance learning suddenly has become the buzzword. So within distance learning, you can have 2 types of learning, synchronous and asynchronous learning. So basically synchronous learning, that's happening when teaching and learning occurs at the same time and place. For example, we're having a meeting and it's synchronous because it's live and we're providing the content and you're receiving it at the same time. It's also another term for it is kind of like in-person learning, and platforms used most popular, of course, is Zoom. I wish I could go back in time and get some stock in Zoom because it has exploded. Google Hangout, WebEx, or other virtual platforms where the teacher and students are interacting in real time, as opposed to asynchronous learning. What we could also do is we could have pre-recorded this presentation. We would have had that option. We would have recorded ourselves, and then Andrew would have embedded our presentation into the slide, and you would be seeing that. And again, we produce the content at a different time and place, and the learner is receiving the content in a much more convenient time and place. So that's asynchronous learning. And so teachers would present a pre-recorded lesson, and the kids would watch it later in the day or throughout the week. And so those were the 2 types of learning that were occurring and we're looking at occurring for next school year. And then of course, blended learning is a combination of both. Is you would have lessons in live lessons and then a blended approach where you'd have pre-recorded lessons. So for my district, the kindergarten through 8th grade, we had to immediately go into our distance learning plan. And what our plan included was, first and foremost, it was about creating support. We were towards the end of our school year. I mean, back in March, we still had a lot of schooling to go, and we had to immediately convert into a learning platform. And that's like, how are we going to present that content to our families? And we had a lot of teachers that were exploring, for example, some schools, some grade levels where you were already familiar with Google Classroom, Seesaw. Some were already using Class Dojo to upload their lessons. And so what we did not want to do is interrupt that process. Teachers were going to have to utilize the resources they had available. Again, it was one day we were moving forward, and the very next day the world changed. And so we had to offer choices for our teachers because we both had some teachers who were already familiar with this type of learning and some teachers that were probably still struggling to embrace this type of learning. So everyone was in different places. So the issue of choice became very important to our staff because we did not want to disrupt that. We had to look at the learning content, what was going to be uploaded, make sure that we looked at our, make sure that we were addressing the grade level standards for our students. And then of course, providing the resources that we needed to get this done. Next slide. So as far as the student content, we had a team of teachers working on mapping out the material that was left to be left to be taught for the rest of the year. So they pulled out the essential standards and pushed those out to our teachers. We also looked at having a platform from which our parents and organize the content for our families and our parents, looking at what we were going to be providing for our families as far as grade level content. Next slide. And again, all of this was work in progress as we were, it's the old adage is you're building the plane as it's flying in the air. I mean, this was literally, we had to get the plane off the ground in order for us to get this done. We had to push out a lot of resources to our teachers. And so we had to put the resources on our web platform because we could not bring them in. And so it was all dependent on our teachers reviewing all the resources. And we had a team of coaches that were working with teachers to learn Zoom, learn all these new platforms. And it became a work in progress. Again, teachers had to learn and implement all at the same time. Next slide. We also had to push out resources to our families. What are the weekly lessons? Social and emotional became a huge focus. We were having, whereas before we would have counselors working with individual students, social workers, the amount of reach outs we were getting from our families, we had to push out. We knew that families were asking, how do I have the conversation with my students or with my own kids about what's happening in the world? They're afraid. So we pushed out some resources, which are video links that the families had access to. And again, age appropriate for our kids. And then of course, additional learning resources for our families. Next slide. So this is what it looked like right as we started March 16th. Our first week, it was really about getting our family, our nutrition services program, our meals distribution. And I'll tell you, just the logistics of that alone, we spent countless hours. I know Anne and I, our departments, about how we were going to do this. And even once it was off, is how do we ensure the safety of everybody coming through? I mean, and this was at the initial times when masks weren't required. So we went through the transition. Oh, now overnight we had to require masks. So it was quite a roller coaster ride. We also had to close our offices and then figure out how to move every logistical thing, operations on the virtual platform. We still had payroll to run. We still had to continue. We were still receiving orders. We were still doing a myriad of all the tasks that had to be done. We just had to figure out how to do those remotely. And then of course, week two, we called re-engagement, where we had all our staff, we pulled them all in, our faculty, our staff, and said, all right, now we need to re-engage. They had all the teachers made student contacts, called them on the phone. We had to check on, first and foremost, are you okay? Second, what's your access to connectivity? Because that was going to be a huge lifeline in getting school, continuing with school. Week three, we prepared, because of this data, we found out that a large percentage of our families did not have connectivity, web services at home. So we prepared, printed, and distributed paper instructional packets by grade level. So that began week three, and then week four, formal distance learning began occurring, and packet distribution continued through the very end of school. So next slide. So we had immediately, we experienced some challenges. Definitely, we were already, as far as the elementary school district, we were already in a one-to-one iPad environment in 3rd through 8th grade. We had just hit the send button for our order for the last few grades, kinder through 2nd. So we purchased an additional 6,000 iPads, and we just received those in the last few weeks. Those are going to come in handy moving into the next school year. So, but we did have a lot of excess iPads that we had, so we distributed 2,000 iPads to families that were in need. We also, we had to figure out how to get these materials in the hands of our families and to do so safely. We also realized once we issued these iPads and hotspots, they needed technical assistance. We had to figure out how to provide technical assistance to our students and our families. And Friday distribution, packet distributions became also a time when our families would troubleshoot with us, turn in broken iPads, we get those replaced. So a lot happened on Fridays for us. And then of course in our district, we mobilized district hotspots throughout several of our school districts and shared that with the high schools so that students and families can come to our parking lots, and there was an active hotspot there where students can upload assignments, download lessons, and all of that. So that all occurred to mitigate the challenges. Next slide. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Staffieri.
Thank you. And I won't repeat a lot of the things, but I just wanted to give you a brief overview of what we experienced across the high schools here in Escondido, in case you feel like you need a nap already from what Dr. Ibarra has explained. It sounds it's just amazing even to listen to you share that, Luis, what we've been through here. But I think more than anything, this has been a real, just a real testament to the power of collective human beings surrounded on a common cause, right? We were all surrounded on how can we continue to provide a safe and challenging, rigorous environment for our students with no planning, with no preparation. How could we quickly move to action? And it's been amazing what both of these districts here have been able to accomplish. So briefly, let me go to the next slide. Our high schools, we had similar things, 3 phases that led us end of March into April. And if you go to the next slide, I'll just share, first of all, what our distance learning approach has been. Basically, 3-pronged approach to how are we going to deliver the content. And as you heard Dr. Ibarra mention, the content for his district, I know initially was, let's get some packets out until we can deliver the technology. So if you can visualize, first we have to assess what type of Wi-Fi and technology do individuals have in their homes. And it's not always easy to reach these individuals. But in the meantime, let's provide learning for some students. And so when can we be sure to reach most of them? At the meal distributions. So people are driving through, and it's amazing now we've discovered how many things you can do from your car. So they can drive through, they can get their meal. They can drive through and pick up their laptop. They can drive through and pick up their learning materials for the week. We were executing this on a weekly basis. And from a high school standpoint, there were some big issues that came up. What about grades? Because students are very conscious of their grade point average and grading. And what about some types of supports? We have held and I continue to hold some student forums with the superintendent, online Zoom meetings, much like this. And at the very beginning, those forums were so emotional because you would just open up and ask the students how they were doing. And the high school students are not going to mess around. They would tell us that, it was tough at home. And then they would begin to tell us what the needs were. And so we would quickly move to provide those needs. A lot of those being food, being just access to online counseling and support. And so you see the word hold harmless here in the middle of this slide. We very quickly took the approach that students' grades were not going to go down. Whatever their grades were on the day that we closed, March 13th, their end of semester grades could only go up. They were not going to be penalized because of this time of closure, and they might or might not have had access every day. So if you can go to the next slide, we kind of took that approach for distance learning, and we're also very proud to share that we engaged in a 100% online summer school. That the school year ended and our summer school just ended last week, but we had about 1,200 students that will receive credit for the work that they did online in summer school. And they were able to do this 100% online. We allowed them to take 1 or 2 classes and they could accelerate. We had some courses in AP Calculus, some bridge programs. We also had courses for our English learners. That was a very bright spot in, amidst many of the things that we had to do to close out the year. You move to the next slide. when we came to the end of the year, there were a lot of logistics because you heard that we had to disseminate laptops and hotspots and continue to provide food and then continue to check that the technology we had given them was working, that they knew how to use it. We had these hotlines they could call all the time. And also, if all of you can think back to high school, you remember end of the year graduation. How were we going to handle celebrating our seniors in the class of 2020? And you can see in these boxes, we took a lot of these things were our focus. Advanced placement tests, they were allowed to be taken at home, and that's under direction that came straight from the individuals that oversee the AP programs. So that was a shift for us. With graduation, we had to go through a number of input sessions to make a determination. Very proud of the plan that we had. It was a multi-pronged approach that involved celebrating our seniors in a drive-through type manner on every single site, having a district-wide senior celebration video that was created and hosted by our senior student leaders across the district. And then we did something unique. I don't believe that I've heard that this was done commonly in our county, but we allowed every single one of our seniors to come onto campus with members of their household. And they came in their cap and gown. We had beautiful stages, graduation stages set up and professional photographers there. And their name was announced and they had an opportunity to come up on the stage and have their moment, own their moment of graduation with their family members, with members of their household. And they, at many sites also were able to then dedicate or provide recognition to individuals that had been close to them. And we called it a coin ceremony where they provided that. I'll have some photos of that coming up here. But anyway, so we had to work through how were we going to do grades? How are we going to do graduation? And I'll also put in here home visits, because as you heard Dr. Ibarra mention, there's a number of families that either didn't have access or we were unable to reach. And so what we found was by going out on the weekends, believe it or not, where many of our families were not working on Saturdays and Sundays, and we just went 2 by 2 and started knocking doors. We're from a high school district and we're here because we care about your son or daughter and we want them to be successful, and there's X number of weeks left in the year and we haven't heard from them, or they're not passing this class or that class, and how can we help you? We had computers in the car, we were ready, we had meal vouchers in the car, we were just ready to provide service. And I will tell you that those visits taught us a lot about the students and families that we serve and the conditions that they're living in. And I think that that's something that we will continue to do in the fall. If you want to move to the next slide, planning for the fall, here are some things that are big on our mind. What is school going to look like in 5 weeks? Well, we've had a lot of people surrounding this on a task force. We know we have to provide cleanliness. We have to provide flexible learning options. We have to get our students registered, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about some schedules. So if you can skip past this time, next slide. Okay, here's some pictures from some of our students that had their moments with their families on the stages. I don't want anybody to ever say we didn't. They loved it. They thanked us so much for doing that because it was so personal for them. You know, we have so many slides. If you want to skip to the public health big four, I think it's 2 slides ahead. Yes, many of you are hearing this, but the big 4 things that our County Department of Public Health is saying is to make sure that we provide social distancing, 6 feet nose to nose in classroom and on every area of our campus where possible, screening for staff and students as they come in, make sure we maintain sanitation and hygiene. And if you want to skip ahead to the next slide, we have a health and safety plan. I'm not going to go through every one of those things. You can go ahead to the instructional plan. We have an instructional plan we've been rolling out. There's one box at the top I want to invite your attention to, which is learning schedule. That is the big unknown at this moment, and we have a goal because our clock is ticking to start in 5 weeks, that by next week we will bring a recommended plan to our governing board for approval. It's either going to be that we provide for every student has an option of learning at home if they wish to continue to do so, to feel safe. But we're also going to provide an option of either coming 5 days a week or half days, or coming 2 full days a week. So we know by capacity with 6 feet nose to nose, we can provide for 50% of our students to be on campus at a time. If public health department allows it. Keep in mind, this is a moving target. We know that masks are going to be required by staff and students. And we know that screenings are going to be required. We will continue to provide meals. We will continue to provide instruction. Luis, I will kick it over to you because honestly, Luis and I could speak for several more hours on this topic, but I know we don't have that. So I don't want to hog the whole thing. I'll hand it back over to you.
Next slide. So it was very important for both of us from the very beginning to have what's our core values, or for us, it was about our guiding principles, because we knew this was going to be a challenging topic. As we experienced, graduation became a hot topic. End of the year became a hot topic. Everything we were doing, grades, how we were going to be doing grades. And we knew when we open up, we were going to receive a lot of feedback, a lot of guidance. But there's something that's consistent, and it's those big four. And for us, it's either we were going to follow the public health safety guidelines or do our own thing. But since this is a pandemic, we said we're going to follow the recommendations by the CDC, the public health officials, because this is a public health crisis. And of course, we continue to do so. And for us also, it's about maintaining inclusive, caring, and supportive culture, because that was very important to us. How we handle this is to ensure that our students and our parents were being taken care of. While we could not provide everything, we were trying to see what we could reach out to our families, because we understood this is a very frustrating time for everyone. We were going to do this through establishing protocols and communication and transparency. We have been communicating on a weekly basis to our families since this started. And then of course, we also formed a design team or a task force for us that has been meeting weekly. So next slide. As we move into, we know that we have health and safety protocols. Daily temperature checks are going to be required, and a health screening. And we were just off prior to this meeting, Dr. Staffieri and I were meeting with our weekly call with the San Diego Public Health, and just doing the math. If we have, let's say we bring in 300 students, 1 minute each, and let's say you're able to do 3 entry points, divide that by 100, it's going to take you over an hour to get everybody in. And so we're looking to see how can we mitigate that? How can we do that with other type of technology? Because just doing it, we just have to, everything takes a lot of, it's going to take a lot of time. Student, teacher, and desks will be spaced 6 feet of social distancing, and it all comes down to the 6 feet. If we do not adhere to the 6 feet, which many are interpreting that as guidance, where 6 feet could be seen as optional, but I have a strong feeling about the 6 feet, because if I have to stand in line or eat at a restaurant and it requires 6 feet, for students to be in classroom for 5 days and put them closer than 6 feet under the guise and us think that is safe, I think, then again, there's 6 feet is 6 feet. And that's kind of where it's either we're going to adhere to it or we are not. And again, that was a decision point that we are adhering to. And I can tell you, I am adhering to the 6 feet, because we also have employees that we have to keep 6 feet. We have a responsibility it's always been about safety, first and foremost for our families. When we had the threat, with any type of threat, we've always put safety and security. We will, at the forefront, we're gonna continue to do that. So 6 feet of social distancing. Facial coverings will be required when 6 feet is not feasible. So if we maintain the 6 feet, we may have some more options as far as our kiddos not having to wear them every single minute of the day. The minute you move into, then you're gonna be in the mandate, or your potential to fall into the mandate that kids will be required to wear them at all times. Our staff, again, we're continuing to monitor the facial coverings. But definitely we know that we'll be required to use facial coverings entering and exiting schools in transition. Let's go to the next slide. So our instructional plan, we are looking to offer choice. We have a full distance learning model that we knew from the start that we have families, and for us about 20% of our families are going to choose a distance learning model. And that's families, no matter what you do, they're saying they're not ready to have their kids commit. So we're going to look at it one semester at a time, but we know that we already have families that are opting for that. And it'll be at their home school, but we're going to offer that as a choice. And then we go into a hybrid model. We're at a point because we know that our families want to school as much as possible. Ideally, they would love to come to school 5 days, full day. And for us, we've looked at it every which way. For us to do that, we would have to triple, in some cases, the amount of staff that we have. We don't have that luxury. We'd also need space, because we would have to maintain our kids, reduce our class sizes to 12 to 1. And right now, my average class sizes in elementary is 32 to 1 for intermediate students, and 24 to 1 in the younger grades. One of the things we are doing is we're going to be reducing class sizes as a way to mitigate this and trying to get everyone to 24 to 1. And then we'll be looking at 2 models. Right now, the 2 existing models that we are continuing to look at is we believe we can get to the 2 per week model now for everyone. And then we're also looking at half-day models, very similar to the high school. Again, ultimately, Dr. Staffieri and I want to offer the same as far as to make sure our families are scheduled on the same day. So we are working in concert. I mean, we're on the phone almost every day, but we do want to make sure that we offer some continuity with our families. And right now, I know that's very vague, but everything depends on this model, and then everything falls into place after that. What we do know is after we make this decision, which both of our meetings are a week after this one. And so that will leave us 3 weeks to get all the other things moving. But again, everything's going to rely on this. Next slide. That leaves us time, hopefully, for questions, because I know you have a ton of them.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jade.
So with this model that you're presenting, do we as parents get to choose which one? If
Yes.
if those 3 options are available, we get to choose which one, and it's not dictated by grade?
No, we're looking at offering the choices, the ultimate models that we come up with, that parents will have a choice to choose this one. And again, with that goes a lot of assumptions, and that's why we continue to survey, because then you can actually, we want to make sure that we plan it out to make sure that we can offer choices.
Right. Okay. And then with you mentioned, reducing the class sizes, and then it said indoor and outdoor learning spaces. So that could potentially, of course, be like in the classroom or outside. Are they going to split that up amongst grades or the classes, or how is that going to work?
Every site will determine that, but definitely we're going to be encouraging that their inside and outside occurs frequently. And, we've got some really nice outdoor spaces, especially when the weather gets nice, we'll use that. We're also looking at offering, because the big issue now is childcare. And so we're looking at every available space, every nook and cranny to see, and working with our partners, the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, to see, can we provide additional support in the area of childcare or enrichment programs, so on off days, kids have an additional option to come back to school for those families that opt out. So we're trying to really piece together as much as possible a 5-day experience for those families that truly need that because of childcare and whatever have you, or they just really they need their kids to. So that may be offered on a limited, but again, we're continuing to plan that to the nth degree. We just have to figure out the space issue, which ultimately, once everybody registers, then we'll either have more space available or less. So,
Dr. Ibarra, I want to mention for the high schools, we've been very clear from the beginning that because this condition constantly changing, and we've all experienced that, right? Every day when we check on the news or the updates, something is different. We know, of like effective today, the restaurants are closing back down again, except for takeout. So things change, and we anticipate that by the time schools open, they'll be different again. So our communication has been very clear that the options we will be offering at the high school level will be for fall semester only at this time. We're taking the approach of baby steps because we can't commit or predict for the whole year. And our goal continues to be to have every student back every day, all day, as soon as we can find a safe way to do that. And I continue to use the phrase of, we want our students to go back home from school as safe as they came to school, so that their experience while they're on campus with us doesn't jeopardize their health or safety in any way. So one semester at a time, and we've held Zoom meetings like this with many of our parents, just trying to convey that this is not a permanent decision for the school year. For us, it's for the fall semester from August to December, and then we will reevaluate as conditions change, because we know they will.
And then I have one other question. Sorry, I mentioned I have all the questions. So how does that really lead into like the sports at the junior high level? Would that just be like continue to, like, for example, like my daughter did volleyball, you know, with the Boys and Girls Club. So that would just fall into their guidelines, or has there been anything established as far as that goes?
We continue to work with our partners. They would probably fall under there's a different guidelines for childcare and then of course youth sports. So they would fall under those guidelines. But we're working very closely with all of those. We got to get that big question is, what does the day look like? And then everything will fall into place.
For those of you curious about high school sports, because fall football, Friday Night Lights, that's something that we all love. CIF sports, that's a statewide decision. And so what they have told us is they'll give us an update on July 20th. And as soon as we find out about the status of fall season sports, we will share it with all of our stakeholders.
We have a question through the chat in regards to the state charter school funding rule change. Is the public school seeing a large drop in students?
That's really hard to tell right at this point because we're in a virtual environment. We will know as we start the registration process. But there's always been a small percentage of our families we haven't been able to reach out to, i.e. They moved or they went to stay with other relatives. So we continue to reach out for them, but we'll have a better indication of our enrollment overall once we start to officially register.
Luis,
Yes.
I have two questions. I participated in Everyone's a Reader, which was a tutoring kids who had trouble reading. And this really sort of, the COVID sort of knocks that out. Is there any way to continue to help the kids who have trouble reading? And the second question is, do you need help with the food stuff in terms of preparation?
Okay. The Everyone a Reader, right now at this point, we're trying to get the basics, get up and running, and then we're gonna look at the layering of services. But right now, as the guidelines state and the way we put it together, we're limiting contact come in. What we're starting to, and then we're gonna realize, where do we need our volunteers? For example, we know already temperature checks at the morning, keeping kids social distance at the onset of school is an area that we're gonna immediately look at for volunteers to keep kids safe. And then we start layering the other services like Everyone a Reader as conditions start to evolve, because they will. And right now we're planning for kind of the conditions as they are right now, and then we'll reevaluate as things start to reopen up and we have the latitude. Again, up to and including, we go right back to normal because we know how to do that. But it's just, so at this point we're limiting outside influences. Volunteers that do come through will be put through the screening, but again, it's about available spaces. And I know Everyone a Reader doesn't take a whole classroom. It could be, outdoor environment. So we will continue to look at that, but at this point, we got to get the basics up and running.
Okay, I have to end our meeting. There are two questions that have come up that maybe if you have a few minutes after I end the meeting, you could answer them One was from about what happens to music programs. My feeling is just like the sports, you're focused on on the basics. And then the second question is there any way we can volunteer to help? Where do we go to find out our child's school? I'm going to just close out the meeting real quick, and then we can open that all up for those last two questions, if that's okay. So
Fantastic.
I'm going to close out with what I'm calling shower thoughts. And there's a fair chance that someone thought of something revolutionary, but then assumed it must have occurred to someone else before. And with that, I'm going to end the meeting. Thank you, Dara. And Dara says to Anne and Luis, a great presentation. It was very good. Oh, Leela is responding. Yeah, volunteer opportunity will come much later. We appreciate those who want to do so. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this open as long as Anne and Luis are available to chat. I would ask the social part of it, let them be first. But you are certainly welcome. Anyone who wants to stay here and chat socially can as well. Just if you can let the speakers get their stuff wrapped up and get out. Thank you very much, everyone. I don't have a bell to ring to go out, but ding. You guys have an amazing day. Have an amazing week. We'll see you all next week.
It was a great first meeting, Andrew.
Yep, good job.
Good job, Andrew.
Thank you. Good job.
Oh, by the way, we do have your song suitable for framing at some point that I'll get to you.
Oh yeah, I would love a copy of that. That's a keeper.
Right?
Yeah.
All righty.
I have one more question, Luis.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, keeps
No
arising.
problem.
So if the parents choose to do, say, for example, with the 5 day a week half day model, are the teachers, for lack of better wording, cramming the regular curriculum into that reduced time, or are the curriculums going to be adjusted?
The curriculum is getting adjusted to those power standards in everything we do. And so when you really look at it, you take away recess, you take away lunch, you're looking at probably 4 hours of, and we're getting guidelines from the state. It's about 4 hours of instruction that has to occur. So if they get 3 hours in the in-seat time, then that's like 1 hour of additional work that they'd have to do at home. So again, that lightens the load. If you were doing the 2-day model, let's say every other day that students come in, then again, it would be all of the learning is taken care of while they're in school, and then they get the virtual learning or independent work, that extension. So either model works really good because the kids get kind of prepped, whereas before you would have to do that through Zoom, and it still leaves some time for some Zoom meetings, but it's not dependent on those in either of these models, except on those off days. Because again, the teacher is going to be, because of the way it works, it's that half of the students are in front of the teacher and the other half are at home. And then they flip-flop. And so the teacher has to think and plan, what are my kids doing when they're not with me? Because I've got kids in front of me.
Right.
And so
but
that's
remember,
the challenge.
also at the middle school level, their other classes will be, there will be other teacher contact in the afternoon. So even though your child won't be face-to-face, there will be other teacher contact in the afternoon, particularly in middle school, with some at the elementary level.
Right.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, thank you. I will stop with all my questions now,
Okay.
but very informative. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jade.
Thanks.
Appreciate
See you soon. Bye.
I'm happy to kick in with the answers about music. I heard there was a question about music, and I'll share with you that across our high schools, we really have a strong value in preserving all of our electives and being able to continue those programs. That's a critical part of any of our high school students' education. So we will continue to offer our music programs, and we will continue to offer all of our career technical education programs. Those are still going to be offered on our campuses. The only thing I do believe that we will have quite differently is physical education. And many of you can remember high school times, that just the very fact of utilizing our high school locker rooms and changing clothing, that is not going to be a safe practice. And so We imagine that many of the physical education programs that will be done virtually, or there will be some activity that will not require the utilization of our locker rooms.
Right. Same with the elementary as far as our locker rooms.
But music, absolutely, and all of our electives, absolutely. We want to continue.
Yeah, and music will continue at the elementary school. It just may look differently, especially, I mean, there's a lot of spit involved with instruments, so.
Can't sing.
Yeah, and singing and all of that. It's just going to have to look differently. But again, we still have our music teachers who are
apart, facing the same direction.
Exactly.
Luis and Anne.
Yes.
So for this, many of the students didn't really complete their last year's learning. And I know, like, on my child's final report card, it said not meeting grade requirements or grade level. So how is that going to get addressed in trying to, in a sense, catch them up when you guys are already going to be limited on time?
Yeah. What we're also looking at doing is, especially for our off days, as soon as we have our space, which we know as we're doing all these projections, we're looking at that we may have more opportunities, like an extra space, determining on how many parents choose that 100% distance learning could free up another classroom. So we're looking to have our intervention courses occur, then you spread those in to provide perhaps offering another in-day instruction with an intervention person that would work with the students, or provide some support with their distance learning model. Again, using either the childcare options or some interventions that could happen either virtually or on site is our options that we're continuing to explore. And again, will become solidified after our enrollment is going to be complete.
And that's an excellent question. I will share from the high school perspective in terms of what are we doing to mitigate or minimize learning loss. I shared with you briefly in the presentation that we did have our online summer school, and we had over 1,200 students who earned credit through that. And many of those credits were students who were perhaps did not pass a class because of circumstances. But in addition to the summer school opportunity, we will be having additional staff for intervention and plan to have a pretty robust team when we have students at the very beginning who first grading period, it's apparent that they're not passing classes. We need to get out there and do some home visits and find out what is really happening, because we can't let time go by without getting more answers. And so you may see us going out there, knocking doors and speaking to people. I tell you that even in this day and age of virtual and technology, we can still have our masks on and be socially distant, but when we stand where people live and go out there, and the whole reason we're out there is because we care about your son or daughter and we want them to be successful, we learn a lot. And we want to continue to help every student be successful as much as we can.
Thank you.
Hey, Luis, this is Roy Henderson. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. Earlier in your presentation, you said you anticipated about 20% of your students or families are going to want to stay at home.
Yes.
My question is, how did you come up with that number? And then also, I've heard that during the spring, I don't know how Escondido was, but other school districts, a lot of students, when they were supposed to be learning at home, they just disappeared into the mist, and they never logged on, just kind of disappeared. So if students do that, how do you go get them and get them back?
Yeah. So your first question was?
Yeah, the first question was, you anticipate 20% of the families
the data.
At home.
Right.
How did you come up with that number?
Yeah, early on we surveyed our families, and we asked who wants to come back full on, who's going to come back in a modified version, and that's based on our data. We had about 60% of our families that want us to come back right away. No restrictions. Hey, just open it up. 20% want some sort of hybrid, and 20% want no matter what you do, I'm going to choose for a full distance. So that's how we're coming up. We just launched another survey, and that's kind of similar statistics that are coming out.
And the second question was for the kids that do just, as I phrased it, disappear into the mist. I know you talked about knocking on front doors, but there's a limit to that. How do you get kids back if they just disappear?
Yeah, really, it's the kids are going to be graded. They're going to get there's attendance that's going to be required now. So it's putting the teeth back into the accountability. So it's, with either of our options, is going to be strong accountabilities for the students. And again, if there's some aside from this, even the students who are in the full distance learning, if it's not working out, they're not participating, then we're going to work with those families and say, perhaps you need to come into an in-seat option for our families. So that way you at least have that face-to-face with the teacher, and they have to face the consequences, you know, up to.
Okay.
And ultimately, we have to rely on the families. But it was that the lack of that accountability wasn't as robust as it probably should have been in trying to, you know, hold kids harmless and all of that. So this one has strong accountabilities that we're putting in, up to including if it's your day off, you will have to check in and you'll have to sign in, and the teacher will be able to see if you are logged in. With especially all of these platforms, you can tell what the kids have been doing and if they're completing their assignments.
So you're saying this closer supervision, it didn't really occur during the spring. You're tightening it up come for the fall?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. Paul, I see your lips moving a little bit. But you're on mute.
I'm not on mute. I just, this is wonderful. We appreciate the interest and the support, because it takes, I really think if there was ever a time to circle the wagons around a common purpose, it's circle the wagons around establishing safe, secure environments for our students to return back to school. And a lot of things are going to fall into place as soon as we can make that happen. And we're going to see that happen here in a number of weeks. So thank you for your interest and your continued support in what we're doing. It takes all of us working together.
Yeah. I just answered your question in the chat.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
And we're happy to come provide updates anytime, because it changes a lot. So come fall, we may see a different situation. We may have, I know we'll have a different information to share.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. Got to run to my next meeting.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis and Anne, so much. And I know I just missed Luis because I was finding the right button, but you guys did great job. Thank you so very much.
Absolutely. And I always, anyone who has additional questions or individual issues, feel free to email. And I make a very big priority of getting back to everyone, because I know this issue is heavy on the minds of our families, parents, students, and the more we can communicate, the better it is. So please encourage, if anybody has a question about their high school student in our city, email the superintendent. She'll get right back to you.
All right. It looks like we've got Roy, Chirito, and Paul left.
Yeah, hey Andrew. Hey Andrew, this is Roy Henderson. Yeah, I'm still
Yes,
here.
sir.
I've got nothing else to say, so I'll just say goodbye. Thanks for your first meeting, Andrew.
Oh, thank you. It was a lot of fun, and I'm glad it's done. I'm glad it's over now.
Okay.
Makes it a lot easier. Take care, Roy.
Sure.
And happy upcoming birthday.
Oh, thanks. See ya.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, Andy, what do you look? I got interrupted by the city manager here, part of the meeting, so I may have missed a turn.
It's all good.
You want to hear something from me?
No, it looked like you were talking and people were trying to hear what you were saying. That was all.
Oh no, I talk to myself very frequently.
I understand. Actually, you talk to me more often than you know.
Yes.
I keep getting phone calls from you.
That does happen because of your position on my phone. I inadvertently dial you with some frequency.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all, I don't tell anyone what I hear.
Okay, good. Good.
How's everything else going for you?
Good. Congratulations on your first meeting.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. Was able to listen to, I thought it was a very good program because a lot of people are very, very concerned about what's going to happen next with COVID-19. So it was very good.
Yeah, this was good timing, and yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely an interesting world, but you know, at least there's a certain segment of our population that is now finally saying, "Hey, maybe we should wear masks." Anyhow, I'm going to let you go, or I'm going to go. Actually, if I'm being honest, I'm going to go eat lunch. If you need anything, you just let me know.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. Be good.
Take care. All right.